Brevity is the order of the day. But as we begin, I would invite you to take a little bit of a journey with me. You see, it was now nearly 10 years ago that I made a trek from Minnesota out to Oakland, California. That's where I was going to be on internship for the year. Now, it took me a little while to get situated in Oakland, but it wasn't too long before I was invited to one of the more majestic places in the greater Bay Area, Sonoma and Napa. And there in that area, I was introduced to wine tasting and to vineyards. And those vineyards, meeting with those who worked the land, realizing the care, the dedication that went into it, recognizing the way that they tended and pruned the vines, the pride that there was in that land and its produce, and being able to taste the incredible benefits of their work. Well, as we come to today, we hear stories about vineyards, both from the prophet as well as in the gospel, about God's holy, wonderful vineyard. This place where people take care of the vineyard, tend the ground, nurture the soil, or are supposed to, and are invited to think about the one who owns the vineyard, even as the tenants, the way that they care for what has been entrusted to them as stewards. But how often do we listen or pay attention? We are especially turned off to this gospel reading oftentimes because it has to do with violence and God wreaking havoc. But I would invite us into a larger view and understanding of calling ourselves to see one another, humanity, perhaps as the scribes and the Pharisees. Not simply with regard to the violence, but the ways that we are called to care for what God has entrusted to us. And today we recognize this especially as God's holy creation. What has God gifted to us as stewards, as caretakers? The incredible redwoods, the mighty oaks, the wetlands, the lakes, the creatures around us, the rolling Mississippi. All of these are gifts of creation that are blessings to us. But we are called to be stewards. Some of you maybe have watched the BBC miniseries that has come on this last year called Downton Abbey. There is a wonderful line in Downton Abbey, or a wonderful conversation between the man who is in charge of Downton Abbey, the Earl, and his daughter. Now we need to remember that this is when there is a particular form of patriarchy and the way that land is bequeathed to children, and I recognize how wrong and hurtful that was to many, particularly the women in society. But there is a point that he makes with regard to Downton Abbey, what he has inherited, saying that this is not something to be broken apart, not something to be hurt or wounded, but rather that this is something that he has been entrusted with, and that he is called to pass on to the generations that come after him in a good, caring, and whole way. He recognizes that that land, that place, is not his own. It is part of a larger tradition, part of a larger bequest, of which he is a recipient and which will go on to those who will come after him. Today we are invited to see ourselves as the recipients of what God has given to us and the ways that we are called to pass it on. And we know today that there are prophetic voices ready, calling to us, calling us to take care of this creation, to make sure that it is not polluted, to stop the global warming that is taking place, They're the prophetic voices that are calling us to take care of the animals that have little or no land, or that are being killed off to extinction by poachers and others. The question is, what will we do? When we hear these voices, what is our reaction? To simply brush them off? To push them aside? To silence them? Or do we begin to envision a larger understanding of what God has given to us and how we live as stewards, as partners with the Holy? Today is an opportunity in a very small way to think about that, to do our caretaking, to celebrate those that dwell with us, our four-legged friends, perhaps our birds, those that slither or hop. It is a time for us to think of all that has been entrusted and to recognize this God who has planted the vineyard in beautiful, wonderful ways and given it to us as a gift, not to be used or abused, but cared for, uplifted. We are the stewards, tenants in a vineyard not of our own making, living by the promise and in the promise of God, this Creator. Amen. Let us together stand and sing.